Part 78. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 773. Chi Ziyuan didn't expect such a coincidence. He received a letter from his younger brother Fei Ji, and he naturally wanted to tell Li Jinghua the good news when he went to Cunning Palace for dinner at night. Li Jinghua fainted as soon as she was excited, and called the imperial physician to see that she was also pregnant in the early 1 month, and from the time point of view, it was not a few days behind Mu Yangling. Li Jinghua always thought that it was impossible for her to get pregnant again. Even if Chi Ziyuan always wanted to have a child with her, even if the imperial doctor told her that her body was almost recuperated, she never thought that she might be pregnant. After all, she hadn't been able to conceive for more than 2 years, and she was bleeding profusely back then, so when the surprise hit, Li Jinghua couldn't recover for a long time, until Chi Ziyuan burst into a hearty laugh, which made her come back to God. Once Li Jinghua regained consciousness, she stroked her stomach and said, "Your Majesty, I'm still young, so it's better not to make this matter public, as long as our family members know about it." Knowing Li Jinghua's concerns, Chi Ziyuan nodded with a smile and said, "I know this well, you just need to rest assured and raise your baby." As soon as Chi Ziyuan left Cunning Palace, he called Bailey and told him to protect the prince and queen. When Fan Zijin received the news, he ran into the palace excitedly, "Your Majesty, is the Empress pregnant?" Seeing him like this, Chi Ziyuan couldn't help laughing and said, "The queen is pregnant, why do you look happier than me?" Fan Zijin rolled his eyes and said, "Don't get me wrong, the queen's pregnancy is a happy event, and the security in the palace must be strengthened, so don't let those people with ulterior motives take advantage of it. You let me enter the palace to help you, please help me." Chi Ziyuan knew that he couldn't be idle anymore, but when he thought of the old doctor's instructions, he shook his head and said, "You'd better stay at home and recuperate honestly. Xiao Xia will give birth soon, it's your first time as a father, you should spend more time with me. Your wife and children are the ones. After the new year, your health will be better, and you will be busy with some." Chi Ziyuan strengthened the protection work in the palace. He thought that the news in the palace should not be spread out. In addition, the imperial physician who treated the queen is now living in the palace, so it can be considered trustworthy. Gradually there were rumors that the queen was pregnant. And when they investigated the source of the news, they uncovered a few unremarkable court ladies and servants, and only then did Chi Ziyuan know how deep the management of the dignitaries and aristocratic families in the previous dynasty was. Bailey knelt on the ground and asked, "Your Majesty, do you want to kill chickens to scare monkeys? The Chinese New Year is only 2 months away, so keep it low-key. Chickens have to be killed, and monkeys have to be warned, but don't alarm innocent people, lest the outside world follow in panic." Bailey understood in an instant. Dragging the few people who were found out to the dark hall for processing, suddenly there were a few people missing in the harem, and those who didn't pay attention naturally didn't feel conspicuous, but it was a shock to those who cared, and the people outside suddenly met with him. The people lost contact and couldn't help but think too much. The emperor's face was normal, and he didn't show any abnormality. But that's what worries those people even more. The emperor announced this great news when the queen was almost 3 months pregnant. Some officials proposed amnesty when they saw that he was really happy, but the emperor rejected it. Those who can be sentenced to exile are those who deserved the crime. If the amnesty is for the child, God knows it is for is he accumulating good, or accumulating evil. But the emperor said that he still wanted to have fun with everyone, so with a big wave of his hand, the whole people had a 2-day holiday. All the people. The whole people have nothing to say about the emperor's stinginess, so you should donate some porridge and rice, which is considered appropriate. The emperor ignored everyone's eyes, and ran back excitedly to look at the queen's belly. Li Jinghua had already left Jingzhou mansion when she was pregnant with Xiaobao, so he could not witness the birth of the child. This was the first time he saw the baby in the mother's belly. Brought and grown here, so excited, freshness has been maintained. As a result, when he returned to the harem, Eunuch Wan hurried over and said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, someone from Nkuagong's mansion has come." Mrs. Kuagong gave birth, and asked the imperial doctor from the imperial hospital who is good at gynecology to go and see her. Chi Ziyuan paused, and asked, "But she is in danger? When did it start? Is Nkuagong at home?" "It was Nkuagong who sent someone here. He said he had a stomachache after breakfast today, and now he has invited the imperial physician. It should be for prevention." Chi Ziyuan heaved a sigh of relief, and hurriedly ordered all the imperial physicians who were good at gynecology from the imperial hospital to wait at Nkuagong's mansion. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang had twists and turns during their births, and he only hoped that Zijin's child would be born safely. The imperial physicians knew how much the emperor valued Duke Angguo, so they rushed to Duke Angguo's mansion with the medicine box on their backs. Only the chief of the imperial hospital was walking behind in a hurry, and said, "What's the rush? Mrs. Nkuagong is the first child, now it just happened, it's still early, and it will happen at night at the earliest. Everyone knows that the first labor pains are generally long." The other imperial physicians still quickened their pace when they heard the words, slandering in their hearts, "You have something to rely on, so naturally you are not afraid. Even if Xiao Xiao's birth is only tomorrow night, you still have the posture you should have." Yuan Zheng curled his lips when he saw this, and felt that they flattered too much, but he was not slower than them in a carriage alone, and he had someone to help carry the medicine box, so he got off the car earlier than them, and a group of people took them to Nkuagong's mansion walking to the backyard, who knew that before reaching the yard, there was a loud cry from inside. Everyone froze, and then their eyes lit up, and they hurried into the yard. Fan Zijin was standing at the door looking in, turned around when he heard the movement, and laughed loudly. "The adults are late, my wife has given birth to Liner safely, come and help Xiao Shiza to see him. Are you in good health?" Xiao Xia's birth was so fast and smooth that even Po Wen and Xia didn't expect it. Her stomach has been more than 9 months old, it is very bloated, and she is becoming more and more lazy. If Mu Yangling hadn't told her to insist on walking every day before leaving, she would have been lying in bed. This morning, after breakfast, she went to the yard as usual, but only halfway there, her stomach hurt, and then a stream of heat flowed out of her lower body. Mu Yangling had secretly told her about giving birth, and she flustered for a while, but soon calmed down, and then someone helped her into the delivery room, and at the same time asked someone to notify Fan Zijin and Wenpo. Wenpo was invited to live in the mansion half a month earlier, and she came very quickly. She knew that she was about to give birth when she saw that Xiao Xiao's amniotic fluid had broken. Explained to her some precautions. Fan Zijin's eyes were dark about the delivery, because Li Jinghua and Mu Yangling's delivery was not smooth, so he asked someone to invite the imperial physician, and at the same time ask someone to go to Fan's mansion to call Xiaoxi. Who would have known that Xiao Xia gave birth so quickly and smoothly? Not long after Xia entered the delivery room, and before the imperial doctor arrived, Xiao Xia gave birth to the baby. The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 774. Mrs. Xia touched the child's cheek with her fingertips, then gently wrapped the child up, and said to Mrs. Xia, "If the child wakes up, give him some water and then breastfeed him." Mrs. Xia paused and said, "See if you have milk. If you do, eat your milk first. The child grows stronger after taking milk from the milk. This is what my aunt told me. The emperor, Heiran and Zijin all eat milk from the milk." Mrs. Xia blushed and agreed, and Mrs. Xia put the child beside her, patted her hand, and asked Nanny Xia to take care of her. Xiao Xia breathed a sigh of relief as soon as Xiaoxi left, and asked Mother Xia hesitantly, "The child will be fed by me? This is different from what my mother said, will it be against the rules?" Mother Xia smiled and said, "Ma'am, don't worry, I don't want you to feed all the time, but it's best for you to feed yourself for the first 3 days. In fact, the old lady is right. It is good for the baby to eat milk. The wet nurse hired by the mansion, although we are close to each other, it has been more than 10 days, and their milk has been eaten by their own children. What good milk is there for the little prince? He was born in the queen's family, and he also fed the prince for several days back then. Not to mention that the prince of Rongjun was raised by the princess. Xiao Xia breathed a sigh of relief and became brisk. Since there is a precedent, then we don't have to worry about it. She looked at the child sleeping beside the bed and was amazed. It's so small. That's why she was able to give birth so quickly. Mother Xia put a pillow on her back and said in a low voice, "The imperial doctor said that the young son is very healthy, and the duke is very happy. He rewarded the servants in the mansion with 3 months ago, and got a high-quality seal red for Wenpo, and the imperial physician also got a lot of money." Xiao Xia's face turned slightly red, and she said in a low voice, "He was just born, don't call me a little boy, I won't let the duke hear it and don't like it." Madame Xia pursed her lips and smiled, and said, "Madam, don't worry, the title of Little Shiza is not called by the slaves, but by the duke himself. It is not easy for us to call him young master." This is one of the reasons why Madame Xia was so happy. The position of the eldest son was determined at a young age. No matter how many children there are in the mansion, his status will always be there and will not be easily shaken. The master and wife are happy to know about this. I'm afraid the wife will bring the grandma and the others to see you in person. Do you think I cleaned up which yard for them to live in? The master and wife that Madame Xia mentioned were Xiao Xia's biological parents. Nurse is in charge, you don't need to ask me about these things. Seeing that Xiao Xia looked a bit tired, Ms Xia knew that she must be tired, so she pulled the pillow and let her sleep, and said in a low voice, "Then servants are going down to make arrangements, you should rest first." Madame Xia withdrew from the inner room, looked at the maid serving in the room, and said, "You should be more vigilant, Madame B won't even know when she wakes up." Then he went to the 4 nurses who were waiting on the side, and said, "Don't worry about everything, just take care of the little prince and serve him well. The duke and madam will not treat you badly, but if any one of you dares to steal, rape, play tricks, or take the little prince is a raft, and I can dispose of your whole family without the duke and madam asking." The 4 wet nurses trembled and responded in a low voice. They were all wet nurses bought from outside. They were innocent and had been trained before they came here. They knew how to take care of Xiao Shizi, so there was no need to worry. Ms Xia stood at the door for a while, then turned to look for her son. Fan Zijin was looking for a name for his son with a book in his hand. He had searched a lot before, but when he saw his son today, he found that none of those names were appropriate, so he wanted to choose another one. Standing at the door, Ms Xia looked at him holding a book and reading it seriously. Thinking of the life when she gave birth to him, Fan Siwen was also very happy. She also held a book in her hand to look for a name, and finally named him Zijin. She said, "Ching Ching Zijin, my heart is long, but for the sake of the king, I have pondered it so far. Zijin is a metaphor for talents, and my son will be the pillar of the country in the future." Fan Zijin has indeed become a pillar of the country, but he also runs counter to Fan Siwen. Xiaoxi smiled wryly. Even if she had let go of Fan Siwen in her heart, she would subconsciously think about him. Fan Zijin noticed something was wrong, raised his head, put down the book when he saw his mother, and said with a faint smile, "Why is mother here? Come here and talk to you. I see that there are no elderly people in your house except Nanny Xia. Your mother-in-law and the others will come to visit after a while. It's not easy to ask them to take care of the affairs of the house. Isn't that a joke? But it's not unreasonable for a servant to preside over the intermediary in the mansion. Why don't I move here to live for a while, and talk about it after Xiao Xia's moon comes out?" Fan Zijin didn't refuse this time, he stood up and saluted, then I'll leave it to my mother. Xiaoxi accepted his gift without avoiding it, and sighed, this is what a mother should do. She is Xiao Xiao's mother-in-law, and it is her responsibility to teach her daughter-in-law, but in the past 2 years, her relationship with her son has become tense, and she has not even gotten along well with Xiao Xia, so naturally she has no chance to teach her anything. The Xia family stayed in the Duke's mansion, and she asked people to go back to Fan's mansion to bring her daily necessities, and also the servants she used to order. The hearts of Aunt Lu and the others were about to stir again. Fan Zixiao approached his father for this, and wanted to take over the general affairs of the mansion. He didn't study well, and it was thanks to Fan Siwen that he got a false job. If he wanted to be an official, it was impossible for Fan Zijin to suppress him. He had wanted to take over the general affairs of the mansion a long time ago, but he was maliciously suppressed by Fan Zijin before. He couldn't get it, and now Fan Zijin seemed to ignore the matter, but the Xia family who had been compromising with Fan Siwen became tyrannical again, saying nothing that he would agree with him to take care of the general affairs of the mansion, so this matter has been shelved. Now is the best time to take advantage of Xia's absence at home. If he can replace the stewards of those farm shops with his people within this period of time, even if Xia gets angry when he comes back, there is nothing he can do about it. Fan Zixiao calculated everything, but he missed Fan Siwen, and Fan Siwen refused to hand over the general affairs to him. Fan Zixiao widened his eyes and asked, why? Why? Fan Siwen is also asking himself this question. He can't tell his son. He has found out in his conscience that he intends to obey the rules. The property in this mansion also has Fan Zijin's share, so he can't hand over the property to him when he knows Fan Zixiao's intentions. During this period of time, Fan Siwen had a very bad time. Although the emperor did not reprimand him, he circumvented him and conferred the title of Mrs. Xia as a first-class wife. No matter what, dote on concubines and kill wives. During the Double Ninth Festival, Fan Zijin didn't even go to the gate of the mansion, which confirmed the rumors that their father and son were at odds. That day he asked Xiaoxi to call Fan Zijin over with a livid face that day, but found that the person who had always only yelled at him, Xiaoxi, calmed down, spoke up for Fan Zijin, and satirized him instead. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 775. It was only then that Fan Siwen realized that his life was not good. The servants in the mansion were divided into 3 factions, fighting fiercely together. The Xia family, who had always tried to keep a bowl of water in the past, stood unequivocally on the side of his own people. Not only did they beat and sell Fan Zixiao's people, but also drove several servants who were loyal to him to the farm, causing his prestige to plummet. If this is enough to make him uncomfortable, then it is his pain that has calmed down. He found that Xiaoxi no longer set his sights on him, but devoted himself to guarding the family's family property. Xia clearly told Fan Siwen, these belong to my son. He is a legitimate son and has not made any mistakes. He deserves nothing less. If you want to leave all the family business to Fan Zixiao, you are not allowed to find anything about the Fan family. Going to Nquagong's mansion, the 2 sides are divided into sects, and the well water does not interfere with the river water. The Xia family didn't care about him so much, which made Fan Siwen timid. He didn't have any trouble with Fan Zijin in the past 2 months. In addition, Fan Zijin was recuperating in the mansion, and the father and son couldn't see each other. On the contrary, the relationship between father and son has eased. But that is in the eyes of outsiders. In Fan Zixiao's eyes, it is Fan Siwen who is very disappointed in Fan Zijin, and Fan Zijin completely ignores Fan Siwen. Let him take care of the fields so that the property can be transferred. Fan Xiao has even thought about the future. He wants to quickly transfer the property in the mansion to his wife's dowry, so that even if Fan Zijian uses power to overwhelm others when the family is finally separated, he will not be left without a penny. Unexpectedly, my father refused to agree. Father, why? Fan Xiao looked at him sadly. My son is a bastard, and my younger brother has always been prejudiced against me. If you don't help me, then my son will really have no way out. Fan Siwen said with a headache, you are not the only bastard. Your younger brothers are not in a hurry. What are you in a hurry? Didn't I give you money to run your business a few years ago? How are you doing? Fan Xiao choked, and said in a low voice, the capital is not enough, and my son has no connections, so. Fan Siwen sighed. It seemed that the eldest son was no match for Zijian, not only in reading, but also in business. He waved his hand and said, go down, your mother and I are still here, and the general affairs of the mansion should be handed over to your mother. When I get old, I will naturally divide the family for you. It is yours, and there will be no less. Fan Xiao's face twisted for a while. He naturally didn't want only the bastard's share. Isn't he the eldest son that his father loves the most? Why didn't he want to hand over the common affairs of the mansion to him? Fan Siwen has been immersed in the officialdom for more than 20 years, so naturally he did not miss the eldest son's face, and felt sore and painful in his heart for a moment, which was extremely complicated. Xia's indifference seemed to wake up his brain, making him pay attention to things around him that he never noticed before. As soon as Fan Xiao left, Fan Siwen couldn't sit still. He called the butler in and asked him to open the storeroom to find some valuable medicinal materials and supplements to send to the Duke Angguo's mansion. After all, it was the first child of his son-in-law. Grandfathers can't mean nothing. Xiaoxi and Fan Zijian both have people in the Fan mansion, and what happened in the study cannot be hidden from them at all. Not long after she let him go, Fan Siwen also changed, if he could change earlier. Fan Zijian was much more direct. He said, I didn't believe that there would be such a lowly person in this world before, but now I believe it. Yanmo, who was standing underneath, could only wish to hide himself. Fan Zijian snorted and said with a smile, now that I know I regret it. What did I do long ago? All the things sent over there are thrown into the warehouse and sold another day. Since the Fan family hates me, Duke Ang, then what is mine is mine. Yan Mo said, do you want the slaves to let people watch them? No need, Fan Zijian said with a smile, I wish they could do more moves. It will be refreshing to slap them in the face. Anyway, the Lord is not afraid of losing face. Yan Mo suddenly shrank his neck and dared not speak. Fan Zijian felt refreshed, and felt that the depression in his chest had dissipated. He could actually see Fan Siwen regretting what he had done in his lifetime, and felt that the anger he had suffered before was worth it. Then the old doctor who came to ask Fan Zijian for a safe pulse the next day looked at him in surprise, and took the pulse carefully. After confirming what he thought in his heart, a smile appeared on his face, and said, Master Guo's health has improved a lot. After another 3 to 2 months of conditioning, the medicine can be stopped, and it is almost enough to recuperate with food. Fan Zijian raised his eyebrows. Didn't the master say last time that he would take care of it for about half a year? The old doctor smiled and said, my lord, pathology is not only caused by the body, it may also be caused by the heart, or a combination of both. These effects, if people are optimistic, may in turn affect the disease for the better. If people are pessimistic, a small illness may also become a serious illness. The old doctor paused for a moment and said with a smile, Master Guo is in a good mood these days. Fan Zijian raised his eyebrows. He was in a happy mood and did not refute. He was happy with his precious son, and his knot with Fan Siwen was untied. Naturally, he was in a happy mood. He used to feel uncomfortable at work and recuperating at home, and he became happy. He played with the child every day, read a book, and sat outside in a tea house. Life should not be too wonderful. Fan Zijian's condition was very good. The emperor knew the second time, he breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately rewarded Anguo Gong's mansion with a lot of good medicinal materials. As for the reason for the reward, congratulations to Anguo Gong for his precious son. The courtiers were numb and unable to complain at all. Unlike Xiao Bao and Xiao Xiang, who only got their name when they were older, Fan Zijian had already chosen the name for the child. It was taken from Zhujiang Book of Commandments: if you are not indifferent, you can't show your ambition; if you are not peaceful, you can't go far. This time, Fan Siwen did not difficult Fan Zijian about the child. He seemed to have forgotten his purpose of controlling his grandson to control his son, and soon put the child on the family tree. Fan Zijian was in a happy mood looking at the other party's calm and complicated face, and the child invited him to be the crown prince as soon as he finished the genealogy. Like Qi Ziyuan and Qi Heiran, he has no idea of using his title to encourage his sons to fight each other. He wants to confirm their status early, and let them know that he will love them and arrange a future for them. The position is determined early, not the goal of their struggle. Brothers fighting against the wall has always been the root of family chaos, and he doesn't want what happened to the Fan family to happen to his sons again. Therefore, Fan Ziwen successfully became the third most favored child of Quandaki after Xiaobao and Bear. The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 776. This is the second year after the founding of the Great Qi dynasty, and the weather is good everywhere. With tax reductions and exemptions, land reclamation and land allocation, persuading farmers and mulberry and other favorable agricultural policies, the people everywhere have a chance to breathe. Spread the grain all over the central, southern, and western regions, broadcast the grain seeds, and have the sowing manual issued by the imperial court. Even if there are droughts and waterlogged areas, there will be no harvest. When the new year comes, everyone will meet to go shopping. The market exchanges New Year's goods. The same is true in southern Qianzhou. On the day of the New Year, people from the towns and villages under Zhezhou flocked into Zhezhou city carrying things to exchange for New Year's goods. Money is a rare thing, and the money in the whole Daki is only exchanged and used by 1/3 of the people, and nearly 2/3 of the bottom-level people are used to bartering, and some people may never see it in their entire lives. What does copper plate look like, let alone silver? So when a piece of silver came to him, Zhao Zhen's eyes widened and he was stunned. Seeing that he didn't take the silver, Little Bear pouted and asked, "Aren't you going to sell the basket?" Zhao Zhen waved his hands in a panic, and said, "No, it's not for sale, no, this thing can't be counted as money." He picked up the small pannier and stuffed it into the little bear's hand, rubbing his hands in a panic. "This is a small thing, it's not worth much, you take it, take it." Zhao Zhen's daughter hid behind her father and stared at it, whispering, "My father made this up for me." Zhao Zhen pulled his daughter, and looked at the servant behind Xiao Xiang in a panic. It was his first time entering the city, and it was the first time he saw such a noble son. Of Little Xiang struggled for a while, and said regretfully, "It turned out to be a gift from your father, so you won't sell it." He wouldn't sell the gift his father gave him. Little Xiang put down the little back basket dejectedly, and a young servant was about to go forward to break up, but was stopped by a pillar. He was from a farmer's family, and he knew that the little girl didn't need the little back basket, and the young servant would inevitably ruin his master's reputation if he came forward. So he leaned into Little Bear's ear and said, "My lord, we can exchange things with her." Little Bear's eyes lit up. What to exchange? Danner immediately pointed to the candied horse hanging on the side, and shouted, "Use that, use that." Little Bear gave him a sidelong glance. "Do you think everyone likes to eat like you?" Who knew that little girl was drooling, staring at the candied horse? The bear was clever, waved her little hand, and said, "Bye." Danner immediately ran over happily, took out a small coin the size of a fingernail from her small purse and handed it to the peddler, drooling, "Buy a lot." Little Seong also swallowed, but he felt that he was the master and should be steady, so he only watched from the corner of his eyes and did not run forward. That dime can buy a lot of candied haws. Danner first gave Little Bear 2 bunches, and then divided them one by one. The little girl also got 2 bunches. Even Zhao Zhen'er took a bunch. Danner said, "If you eat our food, you have to give us the small pannier." There are quite a few such panniers in her family, and the little girl gave the little panniers to the little bears without hesitation, and gnawed the candied haws till her face was covered with sugar scum. Little Seong gnawed on a bunch, and seeing that she had finished eating one but put the other away, he said, "It won't taste good if you keep it." The little girl whispered, "I will leave it for my brother to eat." Little Seong tilted his head and asked suspiciously, "Your brother can just buy it if he wants to eat it?" The little girl widened her eyes and said, "Our family has no money." Little Bear asked curiously, "Why is there no money?" But the little girl asked back, "Of course, why is there money?" The 2 children stared at each other. Zhao Zhen'er was anxious, and said in a low voice, "Young master, we have no skills, we can't earn money, so we have no money." Little Seong looked at him sympathetically and said, "So you're a fool, you don't know how to make money." The little girl blushed and said angrily, "Why are you scolding my father?" "I didn't scold your father." Little Bear was at a loss. He felt that he was just stating the facts, and he said, "I'll give you money to buy your pannier. If you don't want it, you want it in exchange for candied haws, but buying it is the same as buying it. Yes, money is more expensive than candied haws, you can buy candied haws, but candied haws may not be able to be exchanged for money. You are so stupid, stupider than eggs." Danner nodded repeatedly, and said while eating candied haws, "Stupid than me." Because the speech was very long, what Xiao Xiang said was a little confused, the little girl didn't understand, and Zhao Zhen'er was also a little confused, but Luo Zhan, who had been paying attention to the development of the situation, understood. He glanced at the little bear in surprise. He didn't expect that the child would have such insight when he was only 3 years old. His father's wisdom can be seen. He lowered his eyes and thought for a moment, then smiled and said, "Young master, ordinary people are dull and unreasonable. I don't understand what you mean. Since they are willing to exchange with you, you just take it." Little Seong stared at him with wide eyes, wanting to tell him that he didn't understand what he said before, but thinking of what his father said, everything can be weak outside, but the momentum cannot be weak. The momentum that Little Bear understands is to hold your head up, so he straightened his chest and stared at Luo Zhan. Luo Zhan thought that he didn't agree with his words, so he asked in surprise, "Young master, do you have other opinions?" He glanced at Zhao Zhen'er, and said with a smile, "I'm afraid that even if the young master explains it, he may not understand it." Little Seong didn't like his gaze very much. Seeing Zhao Zhen'er blushed and lowered his head in shame, he said, "If you don't understand, you have to teach." "How can you understand if you don't teach?" "Teach him very carefully, and let him be patient with Danner, not to teach twice at a time, not to teach 3 times twice." Luo Zhan raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "It's just that ordinary people can't afford to go to school, who will teach them?" Little Seong was at a loss, knowing that the pillar of his family's level immediately approached his ear and said, "He is talking about educating the people." With a wave of his little hand, Xiao Xiang interrupted the words of the pillar domineeringly, and said, "Isn't it the responsibility of an official to educate the people? They haven't fulfilled their responsibility, so they are dragged down to beat the board." The smile on Luo Zhan's face faded away. He took a meaningful look at Little Bear, and said, "Young master is right, it is indeed the responsibility of all officials to educate the people, and Luo has been educated." After finishing speaking, he turned around and left. Zhu Zi frowned to see his leaving back. The chief guard behind Xiao Xiang winked at the people behind him, and 2 of them left the team quietly, following the people in front. The little bear touched his head inexplicably. He didn't understand what happened just now. Just like his father, he never struggled with things that he couldn't figure out, so the little bear let go quickly, turned around and said to the little girl, "I want to hunt, come in, the mountain is going to be carried in a basket. Do you still have a small basket? If you have one, sell it to me, and I will give you money, so that your family will have money, and you can buy as many candied haws as you want." After talking with Xiao Xiang for a long time, Zhao Zhener also noticed that this young man is not as hateful as the villagers said. He hesitated and said, "There are carrying baskets, but it doesn't need so much money. Just look at how much money you can give them. Just a copper plate," he explained. "It doesn't take much work to weave a pannier. The one you want is small, so it's better to weave it. The bamboo is all cut from the mountain, so it doesn't cost money, but what you want is a small pannier, which is worth it. It took me 2 days to make it up." Little Xiang remembered what his mother said about the deposit, so he untied his purse, poured out all the money from it, chose the smallest silver piece for him, and said, "This is the deposit, you make it up all right, send it to my house, and I'll pay you later." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 777. Seeing that he didn't dare to answer, Little Bear answered, "I don't have any coins, so you can make up some more for me. I want both big and small ones. If I don't have enough money, I'll give you more." When Zhao Zhener heard what he said, he took Yinduzi carefully, and assured him, "Don't worry, young master, I will make it up for you. I don't know where your family lives." Zhao Zhener was very worried. When he came to the city, he still partnered with the villagers and used the grain to repay the grain seeds owed to Fengshao grain shop. Then he came by himself, but he was not so courageous. If he flatly refused, he would be offended. "What should I do, my lord?" Zhao Zhener was full of sorrow, but Xiao Xiang proudly waved his little hand and said, "My home is over there. You just need to ask for the Grand General's mansion or Rongjun Prince's mansion, and someone will guide you. Remember to send it to me after you compile it." "Oh!" Zhao Zhener's eyes widened, and he exclaimed, "You are the little prince." Little Xiang shook his head, "I am the young prince. What is the little prince?" Zhao Zhener immediately rolled his eyes, and fell to the ground excitedly. Seeing this, Xiao Xiang jumped up and rushed to the person who pressed him. He saw that Grandpa Wang had been pressed like this, and that person woke up immediately. And Zhao Zhener jumped up all of a sudden. It hurt, but he was completely awake. Rongjun Palace is their family's great benefactor. Zhao Zhener hurriedly pulled his daughter to kneel down and kowtowed to the little bear, then quickly took out the packed silver beans and stuffed it back to the little bear, saying, "Little lord, no, little prince, you take this money, and don't care if you want it in the basket. I will make it up for you. You are the great benefactor of our family." Little bear became excited. "Don't I remember when I saved you? Did I help you fight the big bad wolf or the bully? The guards?" Zhao Zhener wiped away his tears, and said with admiration, "Xiao Shiza can already fight big bad wolves and bullies at such a young age. It's really amazing. You have saved our family, no, our entire village. Last year, if it weren't for the Wangfu's collection of local specialties in exchange for food, we might not be able to survive the lean and yellow season. They also gave us corn seeds and upland rice seeds on credit. This year's harvest is more than twice that of last year, and the family will have surplus food at once." Little Bear looked back at the pillar in disappointment. Why did he say that he had never heard of it before and couldn't understand it? Zuzi hurriedly stepped forward and said to Zhao Zhener intimately, "Okay, you can just think about the good of the palace, but 1 yard is worth 1 yard. Since our little prince buys things with you, there is no reason not to pay. You take the silver beans, let's go. You can give us as many baskets as you need to weave." Zuzi stuffed the silver beans into his hand, and then led Xiao Shizi and Danner forward. Brother Gui was so bored, and seeing that the team finally moved again, he rushed to Xiao Xiang and said, "Little Shizi, I know where it is. If it's fun, I'll take you there." Zhu Zi glared at him, and said, "The princess said, you are not allowed to take the little prince to play in bad places, just walk on the street, we don't bring much money." In order to prevent his son from becoming a rich second generation who doesn't know meat and don't eat grains, Mu Yangling gives him pocket money directly for him to plan and use. There is a lot of money in ordinary people's homes, but it is in his there are not many identities, and Brother Gui often wants to take Xiao Shizi to the treasure pavilion. The things in it are wonderful, but they are also extremely expensive, and Xiao Shizi's money can't buy much. Brother Gui is very annoyed that Zuzi always prevents him from playing with Xiao Shizi, and Zuzi is also annoyed that Brother Gui always wants to spoil Xiao Shizi. Danner is still young, with a simple mind, his world is only playing and eating, and he listens to Xiao Shizi's words very much. At this time, he looks at Zuzu and Brother Gui who are in dispute, and subconsciously grasps Xiao Shizi's hand. The little bear waved to the two people with big eyes and small eyes, "Brother Gui, you can go if you want, Zuzidaniar and I will go shopping," the little bear said excitedly, "Today I'm going to go shopping at Ximen, the people over there you must not know me." The common people who walked nearby laughed and said, "Little prince, how far is the Ximen? You are just strolling here, we must not know you." The little bear snorted, "What's the difference between this and stealing the bell? I won't do such a stupid thing." The people who had never read the book were stunned, and didn't understand much, but the scholars nearby who could read and read said with emotion, "Xiao Shizi understands this truth at a young age. I heard that His Royal Highness is even smarter than Xiao Shizi. This is my great luck, the blessing of the common people." Yeah. Ordinary people supported those scholars who said that. Although they didn't quite understand what Xiao Xiang said, they also understood that he must have said a great truth, so they bent down and smiled. "Then, I will go to Ximen to see, if the people over there are also knowing you, you will continue to come back here to play." Stealing the ear and stealing the bell is the story Mu Yangling told the little bear 2 days ago, and it started because of this incident. Xiao Xiang's popularity in Zhezhou city is second only to Qi Heiran. Everyone knows that King Rong has a son who loves him very much. Qi Heiran rides out of the city from home to the military camp every day. The degree of recognition should not be too high. It should be said that as long as it is life in Zhezhou city, those who want to pay their respects to King Rong can see it at the tea house not far from the East Gate every morning. And Xiaoxiang's face looks too much like Qi Heiran's, and a group of people follow behind him when he goes out. Zhezhou city is not big, and it's a place with big farts. People will know. This year the life of the people in Zhezhou has been much easier. Not only have the Xixia soldiers who often invaded and harassed them not come, but even the conflicts with the Miaohan have decreased a lot. Originally, southern Zhezhou had many mountains and little flat land, and there was only a little land that could grow food. Then, the corn seeds sold by Wang Hao's harvest grain shop could be sown on the mountains, and the food production would increase immediately. Reserve enough grain to get through the lean period next year. Not to mention, King Rong asked his soldiers to build a lot of terraced fields for them. They planted upland rice and traditional rice on them, and they all harvested a lot, but their ability was weak. Even if they were grateful, they could not repay the prince and his father. Princess suddenly saw Xiao Shizi on the street, and Xiao Shizi seemed to be very interested in the things at their stall, so everyone rushed to give him gifts. So on the first day little Xiang went out, he didn't spend a penny, and he got a lot of things for nothing. He remembered that his mother said that when others gave him gifts, they either wanted something or really liked him. Seeing that everyone only gave him gifts and didn't make demands, Little Bear confidently concluded that he was loved by everyone, and everyone gave him gifts because they liked him, so he happily went back to his parents with the things in his hands. When he found out from his parents that he was able to receive these gifts because of his parents and the palace, he was unwilling all of a sudden. In addition, Chi Heiran told him that the way is to give and take. Give something of higher value, such as your reputation, or your character. But Mu Yangling told his son that the common people are not easy. The things we brought back are not of much use to us, but they are extremely valuable things to them. If you want them, you can spend money to buy them. For us, that is not much money. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 778. Although Xiaoxiang didn't fully understand it, he also knew that it was wrong to collect things like this, so when he went to the street again, he didn't want to ask others to give him things, but asked Mu Yangling to let him store them with her the salary, buy it yourself. That's right, Xiaoxiang has a salary. From the time he was named the heir, he can receive salary and lumi from the court every month. Mu Yangling will remember it for him as his future pocket money. Little Xiang never had the awareness of spending money before, but now he wants to buy things, but he is determined not to ask for money from his parents, but takes his own money, very stubborn. Everyone on the street knew him, and as soon as he appeared, everyone would sell their products to him. Over time, Xiaoxiang became impatient, and there would be a flattering boy to warn everyone to pretend that they didn't know Xiaoxiang. Little Xiang thought this method was good, and when he went back and told his parents, Mu Yangling burst out laughing, and said, "Isn't this deception?" He also specially asked someone to hang a string of bells under the eaves, and told him the story of stealing the bells from his heirs. He also told Zuzi to act as a thief, and Brother Gui acted out the story as the master. Seeing his son's stunned look, Chi Heiran uttered two words, "How stupid." Little Xiang pinched his waist and said, "I wouldn't think of such a stupid way. I want the bell to be bought in a fair manner, so why steal it? Yes, you are a man, you walk in the world openly and above board, why are you afraid of others looking at you? They look at them, you just do it yourself. But I want to be the little prince that my mother said I would visit privately in a microservice, and see if I can really see bullies bullying ordinary people. Why haven't I met bullies for so long when I go out? It must be because I am the son of the prince, so bullies they all avoided me." Chi Heiran was taken aback for a moment, then turned his head and shouted at Mu Yangling, "What scripts are you reading?" Mu Yangling was also very wronged. When her son asked her what book she was reading, she replied casually, "I read the story of the little prince's private visit in disguise, saving the common people from bullies, punishing evil and promoting good. I made a note of it." Mu Yangling murmured, "I haven't said that. What I'm watching is the story of the little prince's private visit to the hero who saves the beauty from the bully and saves a good woman from a good family." Chi Heiran raised his eyebrows, glared at Mu Yangling fiercely, gritted his teeth next to her ear and said, "Then, do you want me to act it out for you again?" In short, now Xiaoxiang is keen on the game of meeting bullies in secret on Weibo, but everyone knows his face, so it is too difficult to make private visits on Weibo in Zhezhou City. Seeing that someone proposed such a method of deception, Xiaoxiang immediately lost the interest of shopping, and went home with the things he bought. Little Xiang handed the small back basket to Zuliang, and said, "Uncle housekeeper, you have to pack it for me. I will carry it to hunt while daddy rests." Zuliang smiled and nodded in response. The little bear took a rattle to find his mother, touched her stomach carefully and said, "Brother, I bought you a rattle, and I'll shake it for you." Shaking it loudly woke Mu Yangling up from the half-dream and half-awake state. She touched her son's head and said, "My brother is asleep, and shaking him again will wake him up. Let's wait for him to eat. Shake it to him after supper." "Okay." Little bear was slightly disappointed. Mu Yangling asked with a smile, "Did you meet a bully on the street today?" Little Bear shook his head in disappointment. I didn't, but I met a seller of small backpacks. I want to buy a lot from him, and he promised to deliver the goods to me. Mu Yangling listened with a smile. She liked hearing children talk about these things very much. It seemed that she could talk about a very small thing for a long time. That person is very annoying. I don't like his aura. He looks down on Uncle Zhao, Brother Tang, and many people. Xiaoxiang stretched out his big hand and gestured. Mu Yangling put away the smile on his face, knowing that what he was talking about was that the man didn't like ordinary people. Xiaoxiang has a keen sense, and like his father, he is very good at grasping the essence of some things, even if they don't understand the hidden things code words, but can also feel the meaning of the words. Looking down on ordinary people means that he is not ordinary people. The sound of greetings came from the front, and the mother and son knew that it was Chi Heiran who had returned. Both of them sat lazily on the chairs and did not move. Chi Heiran came in and saw the little bear lying on Aling's footsteps, looking at him with round eyes. Can't help laughing. Did you meet bullies in the street today? Mu Yangling burst out laughing when she heard the words. She also asked this question just now, and she couldn't help but find it funny when she heard Chi Heiran ask again. The little bear glared at his mother angrily, and replied, "No, the bullies were all scared away by me." Chi Heiran also laughed loudly, hugging him in his arms and throwing him up. He said, "Who said bullies are scared away? Tomorrow Dad will take you to see bullies." Mu Yangling became nervous. "Where are you taking the bear?" Chi Heiran said with a smile, "When I went to see the Luo family, scouts reported that people from Luo Dian had come to Zhezhou, but the prefect of Zhezhou said that he didn't see anyone. Tomorrow I will take Xiaoxiang to the streets, and the city of Zhezhou is not there yet. As long as people come to the city, they won't find it." Mu Yangling thought of the person his son mentioned just now, and pondered, maybe that person has already appeared, or even seen the little bear. Chi Heiran became imposing, narrowed his eyes, gritted his teeth and said, "It's so courageous." Chi Heiran has always been very taboo against these ethnic minorities, because they always have some weird tricks in their hands, such as the Miao people are good at gu, and the Luo family is good at cursing. He doesn't mind dealing with them, but he doesn't want them to contact his family members in private, because unknown, so taboo and fear. And those people also know that they are tabooed by the Han people, and they rarely come into contact with women and children first. People from Luo's first contact with bears, and their attitude is not friendly. Chi Heiran put his son on the ground, and said, "I'll go and check it out. You sit down first, and ask Imperial Physician Wang to show little Xiang, and you too." Chi Heiran called all the guards and servants who went out with Xiaoxiang today and asked them again. There were 2 guards who followed Xiaoxiang but did not come back. Body. The guards bowed their heads and knelt on the ground, unable to distinguish. Although Zhezhou city is small, it is impossible for them to know everyone, so. But this is not a reason. In fact, there are many flaws because the person is not a local. It is only to blame for their slow response and insufficient observation. Chi Heiran snorted coldly, and said, "Go down and receive the punishment yourself, it's no exception." The guards breathed a sigh of relief and retired respectfully, as long as they were not stripped of their positions. This side just retreated, and the guards who performed the tracking task on the other side also came back. They said, "Those people don't hide or hide, they live in the inn in the city." The subordinates asked the boss and said that they only lived in today. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 779. He's gone, Luo Zhan asked in a low voice, standing in front of the window with his hands behind his back. Yes, the guard who came in bowed his head and said, "It's not long since we left, second young master. The Han people are always wary of us. If King Rong knew that we had contacted his son in advance, would he?" Luo Zhan chuckled and said, "It's just a chance encounter on the street, Not to mention, this time we brought a great gift. He turned around and walked to the table, fiddled with the brocade box on it, and said, "Go and recognize someone and prepare to ask for invitations. It would be bad if the king of Rongjun came to the door first." Yes. The magistrate of Juzhu also handed over one. Daki and Daz who have separate military and political affairs. We don't want to break their rules. The guard bowed his head in response, bowed and retreated. Lu Qing received the greeting card. First he found the two people at the bottom, and handed the greeting card to them. Suze his who took the card and pondered for a while and said, "My lord, although Luo Dian also belongs to my great Qi, but the mountains there are steep, and there are dense forests blocking them. Most of them are Bai people, who have been self-governing since Emperor Jiaozong, and the people there are xenophobic. How come to Juzhu? No matter why they came, they will not come for us." Fangs his who said, "Luo Dian and our Juzhu are not at odds with each other. Most of them are here for the prince, and they are here to send a greeting card to the lord. It's just following the rules, we just go to the palace and listen to the palace." Suze his who felt that Fangs his who was so spineless, and was about to refute, when Lu Qing said, "Luo Dian is connected to Xixia in the west, and Anangguo in the east, and has been in private contact with the two places. It is better to be cautious. 2 years ago, Xixia invaded Dazhu. Qianan was severely damaged, but Luo Dian was safe and sound." Suze his who and Fangs his who were silent for a while. Lu Qing looked at the two of them and said, "So how to entertain people from Luo Dian? You have to ask the prince to know." Qi Heiran came in with his son on his neck, grabbed his calf with one hand, took a look at the invitation card on the table with the other hand, threw the card to Zhu Liang, and said to him and Lu Qing, "Luo Dian is only a small county, and it is not a small county. Is it worthy that the king personally entertains you? The two of you can discuss it yourself." After speaking, he carried his son out, and the little bear cheered and shouted outside, "Go hunting, go hunting." Lu Qing and Zhu Liang looked at each other. Zhu Liang coughed lightly, and said, "People from Luo Dian had private contact with Xiao Shizi before this." Lu Qing's complexion changed. He had also heard that Luo Dian was good at cursing. The prince was angry. Luo Zhan didn't expect that he couldn't even see Qi Heiran's face. He smiled and said goodbye to Lu Qing Zhu Liang. When he returned to the inn, the smile on his face fell completely. Only then sneered, handed the brocade box to a guard, and said, "You send it to the palace yourself, and say it is a gift that fell before." "Second young master, shouldn't you send this in person? That's how solemn it is." Luo Zhan laughed and said, "I can't even see anyone, how can I send it?" "Send it directly. If they value it, they will naturally come to see me in person. If they don't know the meaning, I don't think Daki is going to be strong." The guard lowered his head, but Luo Dian is also Daqi's territory. If Daqi is not good, Luo Dian will be bad too. The guard sighed secretly, took the brocade box and slowly retreated. It was also his luck that he happened to meet Qi Heiran and his son who came back from hunting. The round little son was sitting behind King Rong, carrying a basket that was taller than him, and it was full of prey. Holding his father's clothes tightly with his small hands. Seeing the return of the prince and son, Zhu Liang hurriedly left the guards behind, and led his servants to greet him. Qi Heiran reined in the horse, and was about to turn around to put his son down, but the little bear had already turned around and jumped off the high horse. Qi Heiran was startled, and subconsciously reached out to grab him, but he could only grab a piece of clothes. When he looked back, little Xiong was already standing under the horse, looking up at his father cheerfully. Qi Heiran's fingers trembled, he felt his heart beating violently, and then he felt alive. He didn't get off the horse immediately, but sat on the horse and took a breath before turning over and getting off the horse. Zhu Liang and the others were so frightened that they knelt on the ground, and the guards behind them turned pale. Just now when Xiao Shizi jumped down, They really didn't react at all. The little bear didn't know that he was in trouble, and he was calling his father cheerfully, "Daddy, let's go quickly, let mother and brother watch my prey." Chi-Heiran took a deep breath, stepped forward to hold his hand and was about to walk into the mansion, when he saw the strange guard standing in front of the gate. He couldn't help squinting, and asked, "Who are you?" The guard was lamenting that good luck had turned into bad luck. When he heard Chi-Heiran's question, he quickly took out the brocade box and said, "Report to the Lord, the younger one is the guard of the second son of the Luo family in Luodian. This is what our second son left out from the gift to the palace. I asked the little one to bring it over." Chi-Heiran took the brocade box and raised his eyebrows, glanced twice, and was about to throw the brocade box to Zuliang, when little Xiong jumped to hold the brocade box in his hand, and said happily, "It's so beautiful." It opened with a snap. Chi-Heiran frowned when he saw the contents clearly. He didn't care, and said directly to the guard, "The things have been delivered, you go back, tell your second son, thank him for the gift." After speaking, he held his son by the collar and said, "Hurry up and let me in, look at how dirty you are not allowed to see your mother and younger brother unless you take a bath." Little Xiong sticks out his tongue, closes the brocade box, and then staggers into the box with a small pannier on his back. Chi-Heiran strides to keep up with him. The guards have been paying attention to Chi-Heiran's expression, and saw that except for frowning at the beginning, his expression was flat afterwards. He either didn't understand the deep meaning of the gift, or he didn't care, but no matter what kind it wasn't what the second young master wanted to see. The guard went to bid farewell to Zuliang with a gloomy expression, but found that except for Zuliang, everyone else was still kneeling on the ground, and only dared to get up when the voice of the cheering little prince could no longer be heard. The love for the little prince. The guard went back and said to Luo Zhan. The humble official saw that King Rong's face turned pale, but he was not willing to blame Xiao Shizi, and even took his hand to walk in, with an expression of pampering. "Second son, we are in King Rong meeting." Xiao Shizi earlier undoubtedly angered him. Luo Zhan squeezed his hands. His complexion was gloomy. He had heard that the king of Rong doted on his wife and son, but he never thought that such a doting would be involved in official business. It is simply stupid. Luo Zhan closed his eyes and said, "Wait a minute, if King Rong still refuses to see me in 3 days, we will go back." The guard looked hesitant. "Second young master, in this way, won't we gain nothing this time? After we go back, the priest and the eldest young master will probably blame us." Luo Zhan said, "Let my third brother come after I go back. If I ask for an interview again, Luo Dian will be even more disadvantaged. The conditions will not be so easy to negotiate." Luo Zhan smiled wryly. He didn't expect that his impromptu move would put them in a dilemma. At that time, he just wanted to test the depth of the Rongjun palace, and he took advantage of it when he saw the Rongjun prince's son. So the king of Rongjun is so angry? The angry Chi-Heiran was complaining to Mu Yangling, "You don't know how scared I was at that time. He jumped off such a tall horse, and my back was wet. Itchy hands, I almost picked him up and beat him up, but it was outside the gate. If I beat him up, he would yell in a broken voice, 'Tomorrow the whole city will know that the father abused his son. You have to teach him a lesson. 2 more times like this, I will die forever.'" The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 780. Little Xiong took out the contents of the brocade box and put it aside, took out his little dagger and put it in, happily showing off to his father. "Father, is it so beautiful?" Chi-Heiran rolled his eyes, turned his head and said to Mu Yangling, "Why hasn't the child's speaking problem corrected yet?" Turning back to his son, he said, "You don't need to add good to ask if a person is beautiful, just ask, is she beautiful? That's it." Little Bear asked persistently, "Is it pretty?" Chi-Heiran nodded, "Pretty." Mu Yangling picked up the grain skewers on the couch and asked, "Where did this come from? How did you put it in the brocade box?" It was given by someone from Luodion. Chi Heiran curled his lips. What does it mean to send a bunch of grains? Could it be that he wants to donate rations to the Lord's army? Then just write the list and hand it over. You have to pretend a string of grains to fool the master. Humph, the master ignored them. Chi Heiran didn't understand Luodianran's expression, but he knew that the aura should not be weak at any time, so even if he didn't understand, he didn't ask. If he really planned to come back, he would ask Mr. Qian, who knew that the brocade box was taken over by his son first. Mu Yangling is not Chi Heiran. She is very concerned about the things in the farmland, plus the #1 upland rice produced in the Northland. She also asked people to collect the harvest of #1 upland rice in various places, and the steward below sent it a sample of valley skewers. Mu Yangling gently rubbed his fingers to crush the chaff, squeezed out a grain of rice from it, put it in his mouth and tasted it carefully. The taste was a little worse than the traditional medium grain, but better than the dry rice. No, it tastes better. Mu Yangling looked at the quantity on the grain string, weighed it, and said, he wants you to see the grain. Mu Yangling put the grain skewers on the table, and said to Li Shun, go to my little study and bring the data and grain skewers sent by the stewards last time. Mu Yangling showed the data to Chi Heiran, opened the box by himself, and found that it was full of grain skewers with labels on them. Mu Yangling put those grain skewers on the table one by one, and put the skewers aside for comparison. Heiran squinted his eyes after reading the data and then at the grain skewers on the table. Li Chun muttered, it's not much different, it looks similar. Mu Yangling smiled slightly and said, then you count carefully to see how many grains are on it. Li Shun and Gu Yu looked at each other, took the grain skewers and counted them. These grain skewers were all about the same length, and there was no difference at first glance, but if you compare them carefully, you will find that the ones sent by Luodion are half a finger longer than theirs. Counting grains one by one, there are so many strings of grains that none of them can pass Luodion. Li Chun sent the things back and said in a low voice, the most is 8 grains more than ours, and the least is 4 grains more. Just a few grains of rice, it's actually not too much. Gu Yu didn't understand why the princess insisted on competing with a bunch of grains. Mu Yangling said, there are 4 to 8 extra grains in just one string of grains. Do you know how many clusters of rice ears are in 1 mu of land? The advantage of upland rice #1 is that it is drought resistant but high yielding. Under the same conditions, its the yield is about 12 catties higher than that of the traditional rice we planted before. This is the data calculated by comparing nearly 10,000 mu of rice fields. 1 mu is 12 catties more. That 10,000 mu, 100,000 mu, and 1 million mu can how much more kilograms? Mu Yangling took a deep breath and said, the grain skewers brought out by Luodion are better than ours, which means that our increased unit price is not only 12 catties, but can be even higher. How about the sowing conditions and stability of the seed? If it can be compared with ordinary grain, even if it is not as good as upland rice #1, it can increase the income of the people and the treasury a lot. Chi Heiran is not stupid. Mu Yangling understood as soon as Mu Yangling said it. He picked up the string of grains and narrowed his eyes slightly. No wonder you put a string of grains in a brocade box worth 100 gold, that's what it means. Mu Yangling nodded, it's worthy of a brocade box. Go and meet the people in Luodion. I think they must know that we are promoting the dry rice #1 and that we attach great importance to grain production, so gifts were specifically picked that we would be interested in. If you're so troublesome, you must have something to ask for, but even if the string of grains is precious, what should I do if you're still unhappy? Chi Heiran snorted and said, they just think that we will definitely beg them for grain seeds, so they dare to contact them openly. Bear. Mu Yangling smiled and said, it may be easy for Luodion to hide other things, but it is impossible to hide rice seeds. Don't forget, Luodion also belongs to me, Dichi. Taxation, but next year is the last year, and they will have to pay tax in the next year at the latest. Is it possible that they don't grow rice seeds in order to prevent us from getting them? So we also have an advantage, it's nothing more than 1 year later, it's just planted every year. Chi Heiran committed the problem of being stingy, and said, I have lost a lot of food in a year. According to Aling's calculation just now, 1 mu yields 12 caddies more, and 1 million mu equals 1.2 million caddies of grain. How much can this do? Chi Heiran held the string of grains and summoned Lu Qing, Suji, and Mr. Qian overnight. Holding the string of grains in Lu Qing's hand, he compared it with Su's his who himself, and then went to look at the data of dry rice number 1. Su's his whose eyes sparkled. He knew that this year's grain income was good, but he thought it was because of the good weather. After all, except for a period of drought at the beginning of spring this year, it is rainy and sunny at other times, which is considered timely. However, the comparison of these data made by the Wangfu shows that under the same conditions, the dry rice number 1 has an average yield of 12 caddies per mu higher than that of the traditional rice species. What if it is the higher yielding Luodian rice variety? Su's his who asked anxiously, My lord, did the people in Luodian tell you what the conditions are for sowing the rice seeds? Chi Heiran glanced at him, and said, Didn't you meet the people in Luodian? Su's his who choked, and turned to look at Lu Qing. Lu Qing thought more than Su's his who. He knew how long and how much the Mu family paid for the research of dry rice number 1. This thing is because Mu Yangling, yes, she voluntarily sold the rice seeds for Daki, but it doesn't mean that other people have her courage. Lu Qing asked, I don't know what request Luodian has. Finally one of them understood. Chi Heiran sat on the chair with his robe lifted, and said, I haven't met them yet, so the terms have not been discussed yet. The Lord called you here just to ask your opinions. If this rice seed arrives, can we have such a high yield in our hands, and don't end up paying the price for the court to get back a batch of waste? Lu Qing didn't know much about farming. Hearing this, he turned his head to look at Su's his who, and Mr. Qian also looked at Suji. Things can't be seen just by looking at the rice seeds. You have to plant them to know. So he also stared at the three of them with big eyes and small eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 781. Mu Yangling found out the map of Qianan, and then opened Southwest Chronicle and De Zhou Yuji to carefully check the geographical environment and cultural environment of Luodian, and his brows were tightly frowned. Most of the people in Luodian are descended from the Yu people, who had the same ancestors as the Miao people in ancient times. Later, the Miao people migrated and split up. Like the Miao, the Bai are equally hospitable but xenophobic. They are ruled by the clan, and the patriarchs and priests have the greatest power, while the chieftains rule the clans, but they are not very restrictive, and their relationship with the court is not far or close. Because Luodian is more remote and barren than the Miao village in the south of the Lingnan, the imperial court has little interest in that small place, so they are allowed more autonomy, and they only collect some symbolic taxes every year. Conflict with the court. Luodian is not oppressed like other Miao people in Lingnan, and naturally they will not resist. They seem to have closed the gate of the mountain and formed a small world independently. They are both enthusiastic and xenophobic. Neither social relations nor social economy have developed very well, so, under such social conditions, how could they grow such high-yielding grain seeds? If they have this geographical environment, it's okay, but there are mountains on three sides. More than 60% of Luodian County are high mountains, half of the remaining 40% are low forest, and the rest are river plains. Rice cultivation area is not extensive. If the rice seed really came from Luodian, then Mu Yangling should worry about the stability of the rice seed. Because when the seeds are actually sown, the stability of the seeds is actually more important than its high yield, because only when they are stable can the seeds be spread outward, Otherwise, unstable seeds may cause large-scale failure at any time. Upland rice seeds were planted as early as the year she left Jingzhou Mansion. At that time, upland rice seeds were more productive and drought-tolerant than upland rice number 1, but why did she not spread them until last year? Just to test its stability, they planted it for 5 years before it stabilized, and only when it was confirmed that it stabilized, it was dry rice number 1. When Qi Heiran came back, he saw that Mu Yangling was still bowing his head to write and draw on the desk, so he said, "Didn't you say that you can't read and write at night? Be careful, your eyes will be bad." Mu Yangling hurriedly finished the last sentence, put down his pen and said with a smile, "It's so expensive, how about it, Mr. Liu, what do they say? The rules have been set, and tomorrow I will meet N.A. Luo Zhan in person." Mu Yangling took out a piece of paper from the table and handed it to him, saying, "When you see him, you must ask clearly how many years they have been growing this kind of grain, what is the output, and whether there have been any major pests and diseases, has there ever been a phenomenon of out of production, whether they are planted in a large area, or are they planted separately, and how is the drought tolerance?" Qi Heiran's head got dizzy when he heard that. How could he understand this? He hurriedly said, "I'll take Su's his who there tomorrow." Mu Yangling nodded, "That's good too, Su's his who knows more. You have to remember, don't want too much of this rice seed, we have to plant it ourselves for a few years to confirm its stability before we can plant it on a large scale. Then according to what you said, there is still a danger of this rice seed becoming extinct. Of course, the climate and temperature are different, the water and soil are different, and the pest lesion is also different. If there is a certain point where its fatal weakness is concentrated, it may be extinct. Of course, the possibility of this is relatively small, and the possibility of production reduction is relatively high. Big, but no matter what kind, we always have to ask to find out before we can promote it with confidence." Qi Heiran nodded thoughtfully, so they were not at a disadvantage. Qi Heiran smiled slightly. Su Ji was still very excited when he saw the things on the note, and said, "My lord is really thoughtful. Yesterday I thought about it all night and I only listed a few items. I always feel that there are many unfinished things, but I always I can't figure out what the problem is. Now that I read the problems listed by the prince, I am suddenly enlightened." Qi Heiran waved his hand and said, "My master doesn't know how to farm, this is all listed by the princess, let's go, let's meet those people." Su Ji glanced hesitantly at the little bear in his arms. The little bear immediately hugged his father's neck tightly and buried his head in his arms without looking up. Qi Heiran hugged his butt, got on the horse, saw that Su Ji was still in a daze, frowned and said, "Why don't you leave? Small, the little prince is going too." "Well, if Su's his who doesn't know how to ride a horse, he can take a carriage." He hit the horse and left first. Seeing this, Su Ji hurriedly pulled the rein in the servant's hand, and got on the horse, but Qi Heiran shook his head in his heart. They were going to talk about business, how could they take the child with them? The lord doted on the little prince too much. But Qi Heiran rode on the horse unsteadily all the way, put his son in front of him and sat down, and when he saw interesting and delicious food along the way, he would stop the horse and let him have a look. Ask the guards to buy some, and sit and eat right away. Su Ji's face became more and more ugly, and he really wanted to go forward to say something, but every time he was blocked by the guards of the palace. He couldn't yell at King Rong through a few horses, it was really insulting to the gentleman. Strolling to the back, Su Ji has changed from being full of ambitions to being a rooster. He lowered his head and let the horse follow behind them. Before he knew it, he arrived at the inn where Luo Zhan and others stayed. Luo Zhan's people had already reported to Luo Zhan. Rong Junwang took his son out for shopping and happened to pass by them. Luo Zhan stood at the window of the inn and looked down. He saw Qi Heiran holding his son patiently and strolling all the way from the street. The young man was interested in juggling and performing arts by the side of the road. Wang actually carried him off the horse and put the child on his neck so that he could watch the juggling. Luo Zhan's heart was shocked, and his eyes widened in surprise. He had heard about how King Rong doted on his eldest son, but he was always skeptical. After all, Han people value strict fathers and loving mothers, and fathers always treat their sons strict, and there is a saying that he has grandchildren but not children. Rong Jun's throne is high and powerful, and he must have more than one son in the future. How can he be so fond of him? He figured out that he was acting or releasing these words on purpose. Even his guards were deceived, but now seeing him holding the 3-year-old child on his neck with eyes full of smiles, this King Rong is really a man of temperament. He valued his son very much. Luo Zhan changed his mind in an instant. Since Chi Heiran is not shameless, Luo Dian has already offended him once, so the next time the third younger brother comes again, he might not be able to open the situation. It is better for him to go down now. He should make amends and talk to him. Maybe there is still a chance. Thinking of this, Luo Zhan immediately changed into a more solemn outfit, and went down with his guards to Chi Heiran, who was in the crowd. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 782. Luo Zhan stood in front of Chi Heiran with a smile, cupped his hands and saluted. Luo has met King Rong. Chi Heiran looked at Xiao Xiang with raised eyebrows. Luo Dian Luo Zhan. Luo Zhan bowed humbly. It's Mr. Luo, the Lord, who has reserved a seat in the restaurant opposite. I don't know if I can give you a face and sit down. He glanced at Xiao Xiang, smiled and said, I've been shopping for a long time. Are you thirsty? Chi Heiran hugged the son on his neck into his arms, and asked him, do you want to drink some water? Bear demanded, drink the juice. Where can I find juice for you in winter? Chi Heiran said, I'll ask someone to buy you soy milk, and water. You can choose the same. Little Bear shouted, soy milk. Chi Heiran brought Xiao Xiang and Luo Zhan into the restaurant. Halfway through, Chi Heiran remembered that there was Su Ji following behind him, and turned around to wave to him. Su's his who has been following him for a day, come up and rest. Seeing that Chi Heiran hadn't forgotten the main purpose of their coming out today, Su Ji happily wiped the sweat from his forehead, and followed up. At this time, he had already vaguely guessed that the prince did this to lure Luo Zhan himself into the bait, instead of them just looking for someone. Luo Zhan took them into a relatively large box, opened the window and could see where they were standing just now, and the acrobatic performance below was clear at a glance. The little bear yelled excitedly, moved the stool over to stand on it, lay down on the window and looked down. Chi Heiran supported his body, and waited for his excitement to pass before he hugged him back. At this time, there were a lot of delicious food on the table. They walked around for a long time, and they were a little hungry, but Chi Heiran he was not in a hurry to eat, but just put some easy-to-kettle food for the little bear, then raised his head and said to Suji, didn't Su's his who chase after Xiao Wang for a day and ask where the grain skewers came from? Chi Heiran ordered at Luo Zhan Chin, said, it was sent by Mr. Luo Er. Suji was taken aback for a moment, then turned his head to look at Luo Zhan with bright eyes. Second young master, so you brought that grain skewer. I don't know where you got it from, but do you have any extra? Luo Zhan frowned, looked at Chi Heiran from the corner of his eyes, and saw that he was lowering his head to feed the little prince, and seeing Suji looking at him nervously, he smiled slightly and said, the rice seeds are planted by our Luo Dian, and the weather is good this year. My father saw that the grain strings were full of grains, so he specially asked someone to pick out a particularly good string and send it to the prince, which means a good harvest. Suji's eyes lit up, and he asked, does Luo Dian plant a lot of this kind of rice, and what is the yield per mu? After planting it for a few years, has there been any pests or other diseases? Suji asked questions one after another, and they all hit the point. Luo Zhan knew that they had come prepared, and his heart that had been hanging over him suddenly settled down. As long as King Rong is tempted, he still has a chance to negotiate. Luo Zhan heaved a sigh of relief, and answered Suji's questions with a smile. Some things he couldn't say, he just let it go. After all, he is not a farmer, no, for those questions it is understandable not to understand. This kind of rice has been planted in Luo Dian for 2 years, but it was sown in a small area. According to Luo Zhan, this kind of rice was accidentally planted by tenants, and now it is only expanded from the original production area, because the yield is more than the average rice, so it has attracted the attention of the landlords. After reporting layer by layer, it was already last month when they got their hands. Send it to Qi Heiran, hoping to do my part for De Qi and the Emperor. Luo Zhan's statement, not to mention Qi Heiran, even Su Ji didn't believe it. Seeing that he couldn't ask for more information, Su Ji couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Qi Heiran took Luo Zhan's words and said, the patriarch of the Luo family is loyal to the imperial court, the emperor must be very pleased to know. Luo Zhan took advantage of the situation and knelt on the ground, saying, my lord, the Luo palace is the land of Daqi, and I, Luoshi, are also citizens of Daqi. There are more than 600 people in my Luoshi clan. If the emperor has a mission, he will die. Qi Heiran narrowed his eyes, supported his hand and said, the emperor knows your loyalty, second master Luo, get up and speak. Luo Zhan's thoughts changed, but he had already made up his mind. When he raised his head again, he looked at Qi Heiran with tears in his eyes. Today, Luo has the courage to beg the emperor and the prince to make decisions for the Luo clan. Qi Heiran held his hand unchanged, and said with a smile, let's talk when you have something to say. After saying the most important sentence, Luo Zhan felt relieved, and sat down on the chair in a calm manner. Qi Heiran asked curiously, isn't Luo Dian self-governed by your Luo clan? Xiao Wang remembers that even the chieftains are from your Luo clan. Could it be that there are still people in Luo Dian who can bully you? Luo Zhan smiled wryly, and said, my lord doesn't know that Luo Dian borders Xixia, and the two are in peace and harmony. It's all because Luo Dian is mostly high mountains and dense forests, and the land is barren. Xixia people don't want to come to Luo Dian even if they dig grassy valleys, but since you drove the Xixia soldiers out of Qianan 2 years ago, the Xixia people have crossed the border from time to time to harass Luo Dian. There are no more than 100 people in the chieftain's yamen of Luodian. Because there is only such a small road from Xixia to Luodian, there has never been a garrison. In the past 2 years, the Xixia people have become more and more excessive. They have penetrated from the border villages to the villages within 20 miles. If the township continues to develop, Luo Dian is afraid. Luo Zhan looked at Qi Heiran, gritted his teeth and said, my lord, please take pity on the 5,000 people in Luodian County and send troops to guard Luodian. Qi Heiran was stunned. He didn't expect that Luo Zhan proposed such a condition. Speaking of such a thing, it should be proposed by the chieftain to the imperial court. Why would he come to him at a distance? When Qi Heiran asked the question, Luo Zhan blushed and said, there is no consensus within Luo Dian on this matter. Someone suggested that the imperial court should garrison troops, but the garrison is not so easy. The construction of the guards requires money. Most of the money will be spread on the people of Luo Dian, and the garrison must be placed, whether it is the local people who are responsible for the garrison like in the early days of the Great Zhou dynasty. The military salaries and food salaries are still distributed to the garrison military fields as they are now, and they are self-sufficient, which is a big burden for the people of Luo Dian. In the former, the taxes on them will be increased a lot. In the latter, they don't have much land, and if they distribute it, they will have even less land and will be poorer. So someone proposed to recruit local young and strong for defense, but even if the imperial court didn't care about their recruitment, they would not train soldiers if they recruited people. The Bai people are fierce and brave, but because they are comfortable and peaceful all year round, fighting is like fighting in groups. How can they compare with well-trained Xixia soldiers? In the past 2 years, all the people they recruited died at the border. Luo Zhan's father just couldn't see this kind of consumption, so he asked his son to ask Chi Heiran with a big gift, hoping to bypass the chieftain and directly ask Chi Heiran to send them a team. Garrison goes. Luo Zhan has always been the superior second son in Luo Dian, and he is also the most intelligent. Even his elder brother is second only to him, so he was very confident when he came. In addition, they also asked about the relationship between the Rongjun Palace. The matter of farming and mulberry is particularly important. With such an important rice seed in his hand, he has a higher chance of negotiating, but who would have thought that he would be dealt with coldly by Chi Heiran as soon as he came, which greatly affected his confidence.